And welcome back to Talking Europe, coming to you, of course, from Ambassadors Week here in Paris. 6,500 migrants were rescued off the coast of Libya on Monday. That's according to the Italian Coast Guard. A lot for one day, but still only a tiny fraction when you look at the amount of people trying to get to the EU for a better, often safer life. We're going to be speaking about migration to ambassadors here, but first, Andrew Hillier reports on that latest news.
After an agonizing journey, this is the moment they knew they would survive. These images show only a fraction of the migrants hauled to safety in Monday's massive rescue operation. Around 6,500 of them were rescued, according to the Italian Coast Guard. For migrants who risk one of the world's deadliest journeys to make it to Europe, death is never far away. They've been packed onto overcrowded wooden boats. Babies, barely months old, among the survivors. The operation took place just 13 miles north of the Libyan coastal town of Sabratha. Compared with last year, the number of asylum seekers trying to reach Greece has dropped dramatically. But the number of migrants attempting the much longer crossing to Italy has remained largely unchanged. UN figures show that most come from Nigeria and Eritrea. Others come from countries racked by war and instability, such as Somalia and Mali. Their route often takes them through the same country. Conflict and lawlessness have made Libya a major transit point for thousands of migrants. Easy prey for human traffickers that thrive on chaos.
Well, the migration issue is the one we're going to look at in the second half of this show right now with our first guest, Director General of the French Administration for Refugees, OFPRA as it's known, Mr. Pascal Brice. Mr. Brice, thanks for your time. Shocking figures again coming in this week. You know, we saw that 6,500 people rescued on Monday alone. The EU clearly failing on the refugee issue and the migration question.
Well, the fact is that for 2 years we've been living those dramas. People going away from wars, persecutions in Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, Eritrea, other countries. We are facing this situation. We do it in France, we do it in Europe. We did improve, we have to improve more. What is important in this matter? What is it? Is to be completely committed to respect our obligations, international obligations about asylum. And the fact is that all those people living so awful situations crossing the Mediterranean Sea. Some of them will apply for asylum. Others, because they are going away from persecutions and wars. Others are going away from poverty, which is awful situations, but which is not about asylum. So we have to commit and to be committed in Europe, and in France especially, to respect the international law about asylum.
And try and make that distinction to people to, I guess, help the most in need, first and foremost, perhaps, because clearly nobody risking their life unless they feel pretty desperate. But let's look at the refugees out of all these migrants. We saw last year the EU put in place this idea of relocation, a quota system. Not much action have come out of that. For example, France said that it would take some 30,000 people by 2017. How many people have arrived so far?
That's right. Syrian people in Lebanon, in Turkey, in Jordan, some of them in Egypt. And we have a program of resettlement with the UNHCR, so that we make interviews there. People of OFPRA go there, make the interviews there, and then if they are people have to be protected under asylum, then they come in France. And then there is relocation.
Of the people already in the EU, yeah.
Alors, this is for people, relocation for people already in the EU. In Greece, for people who arrived before the 20th of March, before the agreement with Turkey, and people arriving in Italy. People from Syria, from Iraq, and from Eritrea. And people of OFPRA are now in Greece and Italy, so that those people can be relocated. You may know that nearly half of those refugees who have been relocated from Greece and Italy in the whole Europe have been relocated in France.
How many is that, though? A few hundred?
It's something nearly 2,000 people, which is far from our goals, but we will have to reach our goals. And I can tell you that now, for example, today, during 2 weeks, there is a team of OFPRA in Athens making the interviews there so that the people can be relocated.
But when you look even at a country the size of France, one of the largest countries in Europe, 30,000 doesn't seem that many to me really overall. Part of you thinks, can the EU, can France not do a bit better?
First, let's achieve our goals.
And one, why is this delay? Is it a logistic reason that it's taken?
Explanations for that. The first explanation is that during many months, the migrants were going directly to Germany. They didn't want to be protected under the system of relocation. Now the system is very popular. Why? Because the people arriving in Greece cannot go to Germany. So now there is a real interest from migrants for the system of relocation.
But apart from this quota system, we've also seen this deal with Turkey. The International Organization for Migration says the number of deaths this year of people trying to get to the EU is actually up. I believe it's something like 17% more. Is it not that by doing things like the deal with Turkey, we're forcing people who desperately want to flee go dangerous routes?
I don't believe so. I think that this agreement with Turkey is working in the sense that the refugees now are staying in Turkey. Then there is the problem of people coming from Africa through Libya, which is another problem, going to Italy. So what we have to do again is political solution in the countries of origin, helping third countries which do the main effort for refugees. Third, control our borders and make hotspot work so that refugees must be protected in Europe. Mm-hmm. And those who are not refugees have to go back to their country.
But let's look more specifically then at France itself. I mean, we have Calais, this massive camp of refugees, migrants, something like 9,000 people. It's dirty, it's dangerous. What's the French government doing?
Well, the fact is that it's a very specific situation. And as you may know, it's a situation that we have there because of the British decision, which is not to welcome those people. So what are we doing? What have we been doing? What did the French government do during 2 years, and what is OFPRA doing there? We have a very strong action so that to convince people to seek for asylum in France, and we succeed. Nearly 6,000 people who were in Calais during those more than 1 year have been seeking for asylum in France. And this is very important. We have to go on like that. We have to go on. For example, I personally go with my teams in Calais each week to convince people to seek for asylum in France. And we go on this policy because it's the only one which can be there for people who can seek for asylum in France.
So France is ready to accept the people in Calais who want to stay and apply for asylum here? They have the space, they have the facilities?
We've been doing that for more than 1 year to convince those people. Then there is a personal examination of PRA. There is the personal interview so that we can see if the people have to be protected or not protected.
Okay, Mr. Pascal Brice, thanks so much for your time in any case. Well, German Chancellor Angela Merkel has been one of the most outspoken on the migration issue in the EU, calling for more solidarity, insisting that the relocation programme be put into action. Our next guest, Mr. Philippe Etienne, France's ambassador to Berlin, will be able to tell us a bit more about Germany's role in the EU and indeed Franco-German relations. Mr. Etienne's diplomatic role saw him bounce from Bonn to Brussels and back to Berlin, a mathematician who is fluent in French, German, English, Russian and Romanian. Mr. Etienne was at the helm in Brussels when France's far-right National Front Party became the biggest French delegation to the EU Parliament. A lot to discuss then. Mr. Etienne, thank you so much for taking time to talk with us. Let's start there with your current position in Berlin. Madame Merkel really has paid a political price for her open door policy, a door she kind of had to close, but her open door policy on that migration question, she paid it notably because of a lack of EU solidarity. How is that seen in Germany?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm not sure that I am so fluent in so many languages. I think that the question of the refugees is indeed the biggest question, maybe for Europe, first as a political question as such, but also as a question of solidarity and what matters the most in the European Union, which is solidarity and consistency. Indeed, it was first a big question for Germany. And very, very quickly the question was raised once a decision by Germany was taken to let the refugees into the country, what would be the European position. And there, I think that France and Germany very, very quickly, on the very first days of September last year, decided to go together for a European solution. And a European solution is, of course, how do we handle the problem itself and the question of the flow of refugees, but also very important how we establish a better management of our common external borders. And here we went very far and finally quite quickly, and how we handle the origins of the problems. And here especially the situation, the political and military situation in Syria. So of course the political price and the critics, the polemics were very important. It is normal, it is a huge problem, but also very quickly we had to decide on a European position. We made it, we have to implement it.
Which is, plans are great, but actions are even
Exactly.
better. You mentioned there that France and Germany France more silent perhaps on the issue, but coming together in terms of wanting that EU-wide agreement. However, as you say, very little action since this plan came into place. Notably, a lot of Central or Eastern countries like Hungary, Poland, anti this system. I mean, how much pressure can be put on them? Sharp divisions across the bloc.
I think that the most difficult European problems have been always problems for which we have needed time. Not only to find the technical solutions, but also to speak all together. This question of migrations is a very, very sensitive question in all our countries. It's about our identity. It's about the political external questions, but also about security and so on. And it is normal that it has taken very much time, and it will still take time.
We did see last weekend the Weimar Triangle. Now that's bringing Germany, France and Poland together. This was a group of 3 countries that, if I understand correctly, formed a bit of an allegiance at the end of the Cold War. And they say that they're going to try and reinvigorate this trio post-Brexit to try and get that solidarity back into the EU. But talking about migration, one wonders, is Poland then, do you think there's movement on that solidarity level?
Well, I think first that this triangle, so-called Weimar Triangle, when it was created, it did mean very much. It was on the 28th of August 1991, just after the fall of the Berlin Wall. By the way, it is also the birth date of Goethe, the great writer.
Very fitting for Germany.
From Germany. And it was the way for France and Germany to give their hands to Poland and to say, we want you and the other countries from the former Eastern Bloc into NATO, into the European Union. Now, 25 years after they are in NATO, in the EU, we have new challenges, especially this one, and to renew this very special format with 3 countries, which do represent very much France, Germany, Poland. It was very important to celebrate this anniversary last Sunday in Weimar, exactly where it had been created.
And when you look at it came, they were saying after the Brexit vote, there's that need for more EU to come together and stay strong. Does Poland's position in the EU change given the Brexit? It's a very big country. How does Germany see that, the importance of Poland now that the UK is gone?
Well, I'm not a speaker for Germany, but my impression is that Germany and France, for sure, and it was also the purpose of the meetings between President Hollande and Chancellor Merkel since the Brexit, want to take the 27 other member states to a position to reaffirm the value of the European Union, and to do this in very concrete terms on the subjects which are subjects of concern to the people.
And I guess this Weimar Triangle, in a way, gives more access to the Visegrad group, this,
exactly.
The Hungary, Slovakia, Czech Republic and Poland. So perhaps we will, let's
exactly.
be positive, perhaps we'll see more cooperation and an understanding between all sides of the EU. But let's look, we're heading into an election year next year. Chancellor Angela Merkel, currently the longest serving leader out of this council of leaders in the EU. How important is it that she stays in her role for the EU?
Well, it's a matter for herself first to decide whether she will stand again, and for the German people then to decide in the elections next year. But of course, Germany, as the most important member state of the European Union, and especially Germany together with France, according to our long-standing relation and role as a European tandem, will continue to play a major role.
Currently, when we look at Germany in the EU, we feel that really they rule the roost in a lot of ways. Is that down to Chancellor Angela Merkel, or is it just the fact that Germany is the biggest country, biggest economy?
Well, it's a bit of everything, everything of that. The size of the country, also the leadership, but also the thriving, an economy which is thriving after successful reforms or very successful reforms. Of course, there are always problems, even in Germany. But all those elements are very important, I think, which doesn't mean that Germany will and wants lead alone. On the contrary, we see how for Germany, like for others, it is very important to stay in a situation where all member states will decide, and also where the Franco-German relations remains at the heart of the European integration, together with other countries like Italy or like Poland.
Okay, Mr. Philippe Etienne, thanks so much for your time and joining us here on France 24.
Thank you very much.
Thanks also to you at home for having joined. That brings us to the end of this edition of Talking Europe. See you again next time.